The listening platform hung like a pale jewel in the quiet dark. For 300 years, it had watched the star lanes and the bright chatter of small worlds. Its crew were readers of noise. They could tell a trade convoy from a battle fleet by the shape of radio storms. Today the noise was gone. Captain Iru sat very still and looked at the screens. The numbers did not lie. All bands showed flat lines. No beacons, no city broadcasts, no military channels. The platform had expected storms, solar flares, even sabotage. It had not expected silence that felt like a choice. "Maybe a flare," said Tora, a young technician. His voice shook a little. He wanted an easy reason. The crew wanted an easy reason. Iru did not answer right away. She watched the map where the blue world should blaze like a small lantern. Tonight the planet was dim. Its night side glowed thinly, like a candle left in a windless room. The platform's long sensors still caught heat in small pocket cities. A few power centers, but nothing that sounded alive on the radios. "Send a scout," Iru said at last. Her voice was soft, the kind that asked for facts, not fear. A probe shrugged off the hull and slipped away. It was not armed. It was thin and clever, the kind of small thing that could hide in debris and watch without being noticed. The crew watched its feed with tight faces. The camera showed oceans and clouds, great green countenance, the shimmer of cities. The probe's instruments found no traffic lanes in orbit, no warships, no patrols. The air lanes were empty. Then, the camera found an old thing drifting behind the planet. It was half in shadow, a relic wrapped in older paint. The hull had scars. Parts looked repaired by many hands. Once it might have been proud. Now it felt deliberate. It moved with small, precise corrections, tiny burns from a long-used thruster. It did not send a call. It hid in the dark, as if someone wanted it to be unseen. The probe flagged it as anomaly. The platform logged the tag and fed the image to the translation nets. The hull bore marks that reminded the crew of a human emblem. Humans were a name of myth and old treaties. They had been counted absent from the great maps for almost a century. Seeing a human design made the room colder. "Bring it closer," Iru ordered. The probe edged in, close enough to read the faded insignia, close enough to catch a small panel. "You'll open." A light blinked one short pulse and then the panel shut, as if embarrassed. It was, at first, nothing. Then the instruments caught something else. An 8-beat pattern, then a pause, then 8 beats again. The pattern was simple, raw. The platform's machines whispered that it did not match any known code. A heartbeat. Someone breathed. They opened wider receivers. The hull did not respond to standard calls. It did not negotiate. It sent only that slow rhythm. The platform sent a mirror, the same 8 beats back along a narrow beam, careful and small. The old hull held its pattern. For a long minute, nothing else happened. Then a different pulse came from the planet below. It was a thinner sound, a single rising tone. It answered the hull, but not in the same rhythm. The two pulses were like two people walking side by side, but out of step. The platform recorded both, and the room came alive with small noises, fingers over keys, quiet curses. The hollow sound of worry. The hull's panel opened again. This time, data flowed out in a tidy, human way, not a war code. The platform's translators worked until they could pull a phrase into shape. A single word formed, and the translators showed it on the screen. Earth. The word landed in the room, like a small stone in a still pond. Ripples moved across the map. Records flickered. The name was old and heavy. Worlds remembered treaties, alliances, and laws about preemptive strikes on silent systems. The crew knew what a silent world could mean. They also knew what the old name could mean to those who still feared humans. "Trace origin," Tor said, but his voice was thin. He did not realize that tracing a planet's tiny old beacons could make everything change. The translation nets pushed back only one small fact. The hole was not calling for help. It was not begging. It had a kind of patience, as if it had been waiting for a certain ear to listen. Iru closed her eyes for the first time since they had noticed the silence. She thought of stories, the myths older captains told when the nights were long. She thought of warnings about hungry empires and wise friends. Those stories did not give direction now. They only made her hold the small, hard decision she must make. They could send an alarm. They could open the full sky and call every fleet within jump range. They could call the council and watch like delegates waiting for a war to choose sides. Or they could do something simpler and more dangerous. Listen. Open a whisper channel, Iru said. Her voice did not carry a threat. It was a hand reached out, very small and slow. Not a summons, not a warning. Just listen. The crew obeyed. They sent a single, soft stream toward the planet. The beam was so narrow that only the hull and a small patch of atmosphere could feel it. The platform played the hull's 8-beat pattern and added a question at the end, made of the simplest musical interval the translators could manage. For a long beat, nothing happened. Then the planet answered with a stuttering, rising note. The hull replied with the same 8 beats, and then, like a careful singer, it set a string of names into the quiet. The translators tugged and pulled until they made a list into something the room could hold. The last name, the one that landed like cold metal on old nerves, was human and simple. Earth. Outside, on a dark dock, half a world away, an old ship, rocked in quiet water. Someone on that ship, a hand stained with grease, tightened on a rope and watched the sky. They had chosen the silence for reasons the platform did not yet know. They had hidden away neat tools and strange machines. They had kept a watch. Inside the listening room, Iru felt the same small pull the old ship felt. Something had started by naming. The silence had a shape now. It had become a voice. Tell them, we hear, Iru said. Her words were not loud. They did not need to be. They only needed to be true. The platform sent a thin reply across the dark, and across a planet that had gone quiet on purpose. The small pulse of data left like a pebble on water, and the waves would soon touch places that had not spoken of humans in many years. The silence was ready. It waited to see what would answer. The platform's dish held the thin voice like a careful cup. After Captain Iru's message, the long night changed. Signals from other stations flared up, council channels lit with noise. Some sent patrols, some sent questions. Fear moved faster. Then ships. The old hull kept its slow rhythm. It answered the platform in the same soft way, and then added more. Data slipped out in short bursts. At first the machines could not make sense of it. Then a translator found a pattern, a map, carved in simple lines, and a short, old recording. The map pointed to a small place on the planet's rim. The recording was a human voice, low, dry, like someone who had waited a long time. To any who listen, the voice said, "This is Earth. We chose to be quiet. If you come close, know this, we are ready." The room on the platform went very still. The sentence had no threat. It had something else. It had a promise. Word of the human map spread like a flare. The council debated at once. Some called for caution. "We do not know their aim," a diplomat warned. Others whispered old hate. "They vanished before," a fearful senator said. "Maybe they learned a new way to kill." Traitors worried about lost lanes. War factions sharpened plans. In the end, the platform did not wait for the council. Iru chose a small step. She sent a covert envoy to the place the map had pointed to. No fleet, no flags, just a single ship with quiet engines and 2 diplomats who knew how to walk and listen. The ship slipped through low atmosphere and found a coast that had the weight of emptiness. Buildings stood like memory-broken roofs, gardens gone wild, rust on rails. The envoy's landing team moved in slow, careful lines. They wore simple suits that could translate sound into thought. They had tools and questions, and the habit of surprise. They found a base hidden beneath a concrete hill. The entrance was sealed with bars older than any treaty. On the panel beside the door, someone had left a message in rusted paint. "We keep the quiet." The envoy paused. The words felt like a hand being shaken. The base did not answer at once. It answered with doors that remembered how to lock. They found a hatch and pumps. The team worked their way down the long stair that smelt of cold stone. Lights flickered and then steadied. Machines woke as if from sleep. A recorded voice played into the dark, the same voice the platform had sent. It filled the stairwell with its flat, perhaps tired courage. "To any who come," the voice said, "we do not want war, but we will not be taken. We will not let the weak become tools. We are ready." The envoy listened. The words were not loud. They were not cruel. They were steady. Down below, the team found rooms full of strange things. There were racks of small devices. There were barrels labeled in languages that had moved across the galaxy long ago. There were walls with maps and names, lists of places Earth's people had watched and kept safe. Most of all, there were machines that did not look like weapons. They looked like careful instruments that could fold light, move silence, and bend a storm's noise into a single note. One console showed a diagram, a web that could cover a system. Another screen showed how to make a strike that would not break. City's butt could end a fleet's fight. The envoy's leader, a slow speaker named Vel, touched the console with a gloved finger. "What is this?" he asked. "Defense," said a recording. The voice had a dry humor now. "We call it balance. We can stop a war without making a ruin." Vel had seen many weapons. He had never seen this. He felt a small twist in his stomach. He thought of his home, of towns that sang at dawn. If what the record said was true, then Earth had built something to keep that song safe in a way others did not. They found a vault at the base center. The vault door had seals in many tongues, and one single symbol, a small blue circle. The tools read the lock and found protocols. Some could be opened by council authority. Some needed a human hand. A final set required time, patience, and a choice. The team did not try to open it. They ran every scan they could and sent all results to the platform above. The platform's transmissions back were quick and loud. Now every listening ear in the sky could hear pieces. The fear grew, so did curiosity. News of the vault reached a nearby war faction. They were quick to act. They sent a group of fast ships to take the base by force. Their commanders thought they could steal whatever power Earth hid. They thought it would be simple. They did not know the vault already had its own rules. As the raiders sped toward the planet, something under the vault hummed. The machines on the base woke a little more. Pumps and seals clicked like teeth in a mouth. Lights cut lines across the ceiling. A thin pressure built in the air that the envoy could feel even through their suits. The base began a sequence the record had warned about, a test. The vault's outer ring opened slowly, not with violence but like a breath. Inside, circuits pulsed in calm rhythm. A screen lit with a human face, hold but steady. The face spoke before. The raiders arrived, as if waiting for the right moment. "If you come for plunder," the face said, "you will not find glory. You will find a door that closes on the things you use to make war. If you come for peace, you will find a hand that will. Take yours. Choose." Outside, the first raider ship fired a warning flare. It wanted to frighten. Inside, the vault finished its test and sent a small burst of energy into the sky. The burst did not explode. It moved like a soft hand that stroked the raiders' sensors. The raider screens filled with noise and then with nothing. Their weapons blinked with error. Instruments failed in patterns that the raiders had never seen. Their commanders cursed the unknown. Vel watched the raiders slow until they floated, confused, in the sky. He felt something like relief and a new fear. The base could stop attacks without burning things. It could take weapons out of a fight and leave the people whole. The thought of that power made the envoy silent. Above them, Captain Eru looked at the feed and made a new choice. She sent the data not to the council, but to a small circle of trusted worlds. The message was simple. Earth is not empty. It is guarded. It is patient. It is ready. The galaxy would now have to decide what to do with a world that kept the quiet on purpose. Some would try to break the quiet. Some would come with hands held, and some would simply watch with new, careful fear down in the vault room. The human face on the screen smiled in a way that was not warm but was not cruel either. "We made a promise," the voice said. "We kept it. Now we wait to see who will keep their promises too." The alarm came like a bell no one liked. Screens flashed red across the platform. Outside, a cluster of ships moved fast, their shapes sharp and hungry against the dark. They came from a war faction that had long whispered about old threats. They called themselves the Iron Corsairs. Their leader, Commander Adrax, wanted a prize. He wanted the story of Earth and he wanted power. Captain Eru watched the fleet on her main screen. Her hands did not shake. She had seen raids before. She had not seen a fleet aim at a listening platform. The platform was old, slow, and not worth a war except for what it had found. The platform had shown a human map and a base. That was enough. "Read their signature," she said. Her officers spoke fast. "They are armed, sir. They have heavy missiles and beam arrays tuned for breaking armor. They jump close for a strike window. They do not want to wait." "On the bridge," Tor whispered. "They will take the vault. They will take whatever Earth has hidden." Eru did not answer. Plans and treaties were thin things when fear lived in a heart. The Council's rules said quiet systems were protected. No one expected a fleet to break those rules so openly. Adrax's ships closed like a fist. He wanted surprise. He wanted to seize the platform before the Council could act. His weapons powered up. Tor reported missile banks charging. The room smelled of metal and old coffee. The crew waited. Then the first volley left the enemy base. Bright streaks cut the dark, tiny suns of danger. They aimed for the platform. The crew watched the missiles on their displays. The path was clear. Impact in minutes. But nothing hit. The missiles fell silent in the black, like birds losing their heads. Their trails broke like threads mid-air. On the screen, the missiles slowed, then drifted apart. The tracking systems on Adrax's ships crumpled into error codes. Beam arrays clicked uselessly. The missiles did not reach the platform. They stopped, waited, and then dropped into empty space, harmless and dead. The room on the platform made a noise that was part surprise and part relief. "What did they do?" someone cried. No one had a good word. Adrax's face bloomed on the cum-feed pride, turning to anger. Target lock failed. He barked through the static. His engineers cursed. Their systems could not see their own weapons. The fleet's tactical AI tried to recalculate, but the world it knew had changed. The Corsairs launched again, frantic now. They tried different paths, different frequencies, more power. Each attempt died in new ways. Missiles stopped, beams curled into useless loops. Sensors filled with a white nothing that hid targets. Adrax's ships slid in the void, blind and slow. On the platform, Captain Eru watched the attackers stall. She had no weapons to answer with. She had only a listening dish and a crew who could think. The sensors registered a pattern in the failures. The system that beat the weapons was not simple. It worked on fields and code. It spoke the language of control, of making machines forget how to fight. Vel's envoy voice came through from the planet. "We made them stop," he said softly. "We did not break the ships. We took their teeth." The platform's crew did not cheer. They needed to know how. They needed proof. Tor fed the incoming logs into the translators. The data showed targeted electromagnetic pulses tied to code words, old human signals that bent a weapon's heart without burning it. The pulses did not kill. They rewrote simple trust inside enemy systems and left the ships whole but empty. The Corsairs panicked. Some ships fell into a slow spin. Others opened emergency broadcasts, begging for help. A Drax accused the platform of trickery. He named treaties an old law. No one may disable a fleet without council permission, he shouted. The platform's feed had already picked up another sound, a ripple across the net, as dozens of listening posts and merchant lighters watched the scene. The news would fly like salt. Some would be glad. Some would be angry. Some would think of old debts and old pain. Eru had a choice. She could call the council and spill everything. She could hide the defense and pretend it was a fluke. Or she could do something riskier, show the galaxy what Earth had done, plainly and in full. She chose to show. Open a public channel, she ordered. The platform's dish turned like a slow eye. It sent a clean, short message across the star lanes. The text was not long. It was a simple sentence, in human and many other tongues. We do not want to kill. We will not let war take the weak. Stop now. The message landed in the comm networks, like a small stone. Some ships ignored it. Others paused. Adrax's feed flickered. He could not fire again without knowing what would fail next. His officers argued and cursed. He would not risk full battle into unknown ruin. The Corsairs retreated, slow and careful. They left many of their weapons behind in the void, dead. They also left behind fear. Rumors would say Earth could strip a fleet of teeth. Rumors would say Earth could kill silently. Rumors are dangerous and useful in the wrong hands. After the retreat, Captain Eru ordered the platform to record everything. She wanted proof, not gossip. She saved logs of the missiles, of the pulses, of the way the Raiders' systems failed without burning. She sent the raw files to the council, to neutral merchants, and to a small group trusted by the platform. She did not send them to warlords. She wanted witnesses, not more war. On the planet, Vel watched the Raiders drift away. He thought of the vault and the answer it had made. He remembered the human face that had spoken about balance. The word fit no balance that took teeth from jaws without blood. It was not peace and not war. It was a new rule. But rules are only as strong as those who respect them. Across the sky, other powers began to move. Some prepared to test Earth again. Others sent envoys with quiet hands. The page had turned. Old pacts that kept peace through. Fear now looked thin. The galaxy had to learn a new truth. Silence could be a shield, and that shield could bite without bleeding. Captain Eru looked at the saved logs and breathed out a small, tired breath. She had helped the platform listen. Now the galaxy would listen back. The next move would not be simple. Some would try to break the quiet. Some would come with peace. The platform's lights dimmed as it waited for the storm the silence had made. Below. In the vault, the human face watched the sky in its screen. It had said a promise before. Now, for the first time, that promise had shaped the sky. The voice on the screen did not shout. It only said, quietly, "We warned you." The sky over the star lanes felt different now. Where before ships moved like fish in a river, they hesitated. Trade convoys took new routes. Patrols doubled their watches. The story of Earth had spread fast, a quiet world with a strange way to stop war. Some called it miracle. Others called it danger. News came first as a slow drip of reports, then a bright flurry. A mid-range power sent a formal complaint. A league of merchant worlds asked for protection. A small colony world sent food and tools as a strange thanks. The galaxy's slow machine of law creaked and shifted. Alliances bent like trees in wind. On a deep orbit, a powerful warship woke to find its weapons empty. Weapons are not normally empty. They are tested and polished and whispered to. But when the crew on the bridge checked their guns, they found dust as if the ship had never been armed. They found targeting lenses full of salt instead of crystal. The captain shouted. Officers ran. 1,000 trained hands worked and found nothing to fix. The ship's AI reported errors it could not explain. Fear grew like frost. The image reached Earth's hidden nets, and the vault sent only a small, calm message back. We do not break lives. We empty teeth. The message did not comfort everyone. It made some leaders angrier. It made others pause and think. Captain Iru watched these feeds with tired eyes. The platform had no weapons, but it had something else that mattered. Trust. Vel and his envoy had turned some eyes. A few governments reached out with hands that did not carry guns. They wanted to talk. They wanted to learn the rules Earth used. Some wanted to sign pacts that would keep small worlds safe. It was a start. Not everyone came with a hand held. A powerful empire, high on pride and old victories, sent a fleet to test Earth in a harsher way. They struck at a minor trade hub that had already asked Earth for aid. The hub's defenses failed in the old weight, too few and too slow. The fleet expected a quick win and a show of force that would end any talk of human control. Instead, the sky itself turned into a tool. Machines from the vault did not use fire. They used small, strange fields that touched a ship and changed how time flowed in a thin shell around it. Beams that would burn a hull, slowed, and melted in place. Missiles froze as if someone had reached into the air and pinched it. Engines hiccuped, not smashed but slowed to a crawl. The attacking fleet found itself trapped in a pocket, where weapons behaved like wet paper. The attack looked like a magic trick. It was surgical. The fleet did not burn cities. It did not spill refugees into space. It stopped the fight without making ruins. The merchants at the hub watched as their attackers drifted slow and helpless. Voices on open channels cried, with a mix of fear and relief. After the attack, the Empire's commanders promised revenge. They would learn the human tricks and come back with new ways to kill. Their soldiers whispered that rules were for the weak. They plotted new paths. The galaxy had learned that Earth could fight with control, not rage, and that made some eyes sharp with hate. Amid the rising anger, something more secret and sharp happened. A group of assassins moved in like shadows. They wanted a single kill. They believed that if they removed one human voice, one leader, the quiet would crack. The target was not a military lord but a diplomat, quiet, blunt, and good at talking between angry minds. Her name was Mara. She had walked through broken halls and traded bread for safety. She had a way of saying small truths that made grown empires uneasy. The assassins chose a crowded summit town where many species gathered to watch the talk. The plan was clean. A small device, a soft burst, a silence that would never wake. They picked a time when Mara would speak in a plaza full of cameras. If she fell, the cameras would show it. If she fell, some worlds might move for war. Mara stood at the edge of the square and looked over faces. She spoke slowly, her voice simple. She did not shout. She did not beg. We came to keep others safe, she said. We do not want kingdoms of silence. We want rules that stop the bully. As her words moved through the plaza, the assassins flicked their switch. The device sang a note so small only machines could hear. It meant to stop a heart. To end a life clean and planned. Nothing happened. The device's note reached Mara and met something it did not expect. A thin field that wrapped her in a bubble of slightly altered time. The device's signal slowed, then fell apart. It could not place a single dangerous cut. The assassins watched their plan fail, as if their hands had turned to stone. They tried to flee. The plaza's cameras recorded their faces and sent them to the nets. Mara finished her sentence and smiled once, small and tired. We will defend peace, she said. But we will not let murder decide it. The crowd shouted. Some cheered. Some cried. Others watched with faces like stones, angry and fearful. The failed hit changed much. It proved Earth could stop secret knives. It proved the vault's reach was not only to stop fleets, it could stop quiet plans from breaking a fragile peace. That fact worried the Empire most. They feared a world that could not be harmed by hidden knives. It meant their power, based on fear and sudden strikes, was weaker. From their dark rooms, strategists on many sides drew new maps. Some sketched treaties that used the human methods to keep order and protect the small. Some drew designs for weapons, to pierce time pockets. The sky grew busy, with new ideas and new threats. Captain Eru sat in her small room and watched a map. The dots moved in ways that made her old. She felt the weight of small choices: who to trust, who to warn, and who to stop with a thin, surgical hand. She thought of Eru's crew, of Vel, of Mara, of the old ship in the dark that had first sent a name into space. Below, in the vault, the human face that watched the sky did not celebrate. It only prepared. If they break a promise, the recorded voice said, we will stop the harm. If they come with hands open, we will take them. We do not want to rule. We want to make rules. The galaxy had changed. People who once used fear as law now felt its edges. New friends walked close. New enemies planned far. The quiet was no longer only a shield. It was a test. The next moves would not be small. They would shape how many worlds learned to live under a sky that could fire back without burning. After the failed hit and the slowed fleets, the galaxy wanted answers. Voices that once shouted for war now asked for talks. The council called a summit. Worlds that had never met sat at long tables. They wore flags and old faces. Some came with anger. Some came with hope. All came because the quiet had changed everything. The summit met in a neutral system. The hall was wide and plain. Cameras hung like small stars. Delegates filled seats. Merchants watched from galleries. Soldiers stayed in corridors. The air smelled of recycled water and careful words. Mara stood at the front of the hall. She was small in the crowd and steady in her voice. Beside her sat Vel, the envoy who had walked Earth's hidden rooms. Captain Eru watched from a screen above, her face calm. The human side did not bring weapons to the table. They brought papers, diagrams, and a simple promise. When Mara spoke, she used short sentences. She did not shout. She did not order. She explained. We did not choose silence to hide, she said. We chose it to protect. We learned a way to stop war that does not burn towns. We do not want to rule you. We want to stop bullies from taking what is weak. Some delegates hissed. An empire's voice boomed a challenge. You removed our teeth at will. That breaks old laws. Who made you judge? Mara looked at the empire's speaker and then at the cameras. We did not judge, she said. We made a choice to keep others safe. We will only use what we have. If someone refuses to stop hurting others. Vel stepped forward and showed a map. He pointed 2 lines that crossed systems like a net. This is not a weapon that burns, he said. It is a web that can slow weapons and stop hidden knives. It can protect a small world from a fleet. It can cut a missile's path without breaking a city. It is a guard, not a prison. Arguments rose. Some feared loss of power. Others feared a new kind of rule. Many wanted guarantees that Earth would not become a judge for all. Mara listened and answered with quiet clarity. We will sign a pact, she said. A pact that sets rules. We will let the council watch the web. We will open parts of our work to trusted hands. If someone breaks the rules, we will act, but only after a hearing. We will not make secret law. The Empire's commander spat words about pride and old glory. He wanted revenge. He wanted tests and weapon designs. But other delegates, small worlds, and merchants spoke up. They told stories of raids and stolen children. Their voices trembled but were true. They had nothing to lose, and everything to gain. In the end, the summit did not end with all friends. It ended with a bargain. The council agreed to a new treaty. It set limits on when the web could be used. It created a shared tribunal of neutral worlds to judge severe cases. It allowed vetted technicians from many species to inspect the systems. It promised help for planets that had been harmed. Signing the papers felt like a small miracle. Hands shook. Cameras clicked. The Empire's leader signed last, his face tight, but his pen steady. He did not smile. He did not promise more than the ink on the page. But he signed. When the treaty was announced, little worlds cheered. Markets opened. Children played in streets that had felt danger. The merchants who had watched routes change now began to trade again. The armor of fear cracked in places, and warmth came through. But the treaty did not make everyone honest. Some plots stayed in shadow. Some warlords redesigned weapons. Some factions refused to follow the new rules. The quiet had bought peace for many, but not for all. The hard work of watching and listening had just begun. Captain Iru watched the broadcasts from the platform. She felt a lightweight ease from her shoulders, but she also felt new duties. The platform would be a witness and a guard. It would keep logs and offer them to the tribunal. It would not be a judge. On Earth, the vault room hummed with steady machines. The blue circle on the seal glowed like a calm eye. The human face that had greeted envoys watched cameras and read reports. No one celebrated with loud music. Their work was not over. They had kept a promise. Now they must keep the watch. Vel went back to the small coastal town he had first seen. He walked among gardens where children ran with nets. A woman brought him bread. "We sleep easier," she said. He nodded. He knew full well that ease could be fragile. He also knew it was real. In quiet places, small rituals began. The council set watchers in orbit. Local councils taught people how to find safe rooms. The merchants offered ships that moved in lanes under the web's protection. The small worlds learned to trust a silence that meant safety more than fear. Mara returned to her dock city. She walked to the same harbor where a single old ship had sat in shadow at the start. The ship was still there, its paint older, but its lines were steady. A light blinked on its hull, an old panel that had once opened to say one name. Now it blinked like a watch. She sat on the wooden edge and watched the water. The harbor was quiet in a new way. It was not empty. It held people who mended nets and laughed with small voices. Children chased a dog along the pier. A seagull cried and then settled. The sky above had weight, but it no longer crushed the town. Mara thought of the first name that had changed everything. She remembered how the platform had sent back a thin reply. "We hear." That small answer had rolled into a net, a treaty, and a watch. She tightened her hands around the rope, feeling the fibers warm from use. She did not feel triumphant. She felt responsible. The quiet they had made was now a promise to guard the small and to listen for the first sign of danger. The harbor hummed softly, boats breathed in and out, engines small and steady. Above them, satellites watched like slow stars. The silence had become a watchful sound. It was not empty. It was full of quiet life, and it waited, patient as ever, to see that the galaxy would keep its side of the bargain.